There are some seriously dangerous and debilitating pitfalls on the plant healer's path. Join me now in an exploration of 20 traps and why we do so well to avoid them. And then, if you find this helpful, I ask that you share the video link with your friends and social. Now, it can be extremely helpful to think of the study and practice of herbalism, and frankly, other natural healing modalities, as being not so much careers as lifelong paths, as self-discovered routes determined by an uncommonly passionate interest or a deep and a heartful caring. We gravitate to it, making our way through a cacophony of distraction and past the temptations of more common options, easier means, and likely higher incomes. We consciously and with much consideration make a choice to commit to it over innumerable other trails and directions. At every fork in the road, we take the turns we feel that will most effectively get us to our valued destinations. Whether pursuing a level of usable knowledge to treat the ills of yourself and your family, or seeking a meaningful business and a livelihood, or both even, you define your path and pace, mapping out the journey so as to gather what you'll need as well as to actualize your role and lead you to the fullest realization of your goals. In previous writings and videos, I delved into the topic of tools and tips, the qualities of wisdom and experience, the opportunities and the rewards found on every personalized trail. I also spoke about 20 ways to fuck up an herbal practice, addressing some of the self-sabotaging things that some of us might unwittingly do. But even at the onset of our journeys, there's already conditions and attitudes that can hold us back. Whatever stage you're at now in your work and your studies, it's a damn good time for us to become more aware of them, to understand, to assess, to avoid, or transform some of what I call these pitfalls on your healing path. One of the first obstacles that we might encounter is also one of the most dire and disarming, as it can literally deny us our dreams, freezing us in our tracks at the crucial point where we're needing all the self-belief, excitement, and determination possible, shaking our confidence if we're learning the protocols to cure ourselves or aid our loved ones. It can still our feet, just as we're about to pledge our mortal hours to a lifelong endeavor or taking the financial risk of quitting a less compelling job in order to do the good work of healing. This is, number one, the delusion that we're unqualified, which is to say, fearing that we're somehow unworthy of our calling or ill-equipped for the tasks required, that we're either too young or too old, that we have insufficient formal education, insufficient funds or opportunities, when in fact, those who are most drawn to the work of healing almost always come equipped with what is most essential, including unordinary intuition and innate sensitivity, empathy, and compassion. It's sadly easy to imagine we're unqualified to help others if we have evident or resolvable health problems of our own that we haven't yet solved, forgetting in the moment that wellness doesn't depend on a complete absence of pain or discomfort, and that our personal health challenges can provide us with the necessary healing and insights and skills and challenges, including determination and patience. As for herbal education or any kind of natural healing education, it's possible to trade labor for apprenticeship, to read books by real practitioners, or even borrow them from fellow enthusiasts. Working for a clinic or apothecary is a way to get paid to learn about operating a business as well as about herbs and therapies. Remember that no one, whether brilliant savant or esteemed elder, has ever had every answer when it comes to treating a condition or improving health. But our intentions, our efforts, our experiences, our caring and caution make us well qualified to try. You are qualified. Number 2, pitfall 2, undervaluing our work. Secondly, it would be a mistake to think that you have to be ready for a full-time career as a healer, activist, teacher, or whatever. The practitioner does his or her work not just through healing consultations, but through everything she does. On call and actively engaged, even when standing in line at the grocery store, doing her magic even in the anonymity of crowds. Some will make it their sole focus and their sole source of income, while others will practice instead without any announcement and with no expectation of being compensated. All will begin by helping to heal, make whole, themselves and their families, and by impacting the lives of everyone they meet. Thirdly, is the problem of over-worrying certifications and degrees. In a culture where people are nearly always defined by their status, their possessions, and the letters after their names, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we're only qualified as healers inasmuch as we're formally trained, officially certified, and validated by recognized institutions and anointed experts in our field. Qualifications and standards are clearly useful in evaluating the abilities and the credibility of our work or the work of others, but as sovereign, self-empowered agents, we do well to recognize no outside authorities, measuring credibility based on a track record of not only accuracy, but our integrity. Understanding that genuine applicable wisdom comes from hands-on experience and practice knowledge. No certificate on the wall or attribution can ever make a better healer or make any healer more effectual or better qualified for their work. Seek not eminence, but the credibility that comes from yet another day's efforts and experiences, in every way giving our best and putting ourselves to the test. 4. Healing as sacrifice. Healing doesn't require a life of deprivation or doing without. Only periodic times away from the social and consensual realities and a periodic fast from habit and ease. The practitioner may find that her entire constructed reality collapses around her as part of her investment, transformation, and rebecoming. But there's nothing she needs to surrender except her imagined powerlessness and debilitating self-doubts. We're defined not by what is given up, but by the gifts that we open up to accept, and those gifts that we naturally and purposely give to the world. Another obstacle is buying into 5. The myth that feelings either can't be trusted or that feelings are all that matters. Some of the healers I know and cherish have been so burned by abstract thinking, empirical processes, and selective evidence that they diss important scientific conclusions in the process of thinking itself. They largely only value what feels right to them and can thus discount powerful new information and protocols and research. And of course, just as much of a pitfall is the more prevalent notion that feelings are utterly irrational and potentially dangerous, historically dismissing women as too emotional and thus somehow less qualified for the most sober responsibilities, invalidating indigenous traditions as primitive, making fun of any spiritual or energetic elements, and discrediting folk or alternative healers. Physicians are expected to be informed but unemotional, unaffected, objective, and even detached. And yet we hominids evolved to be the most conscious feelers of the planetary amalgam. The feeling of love is potentially the most positive and powerful motivating force in existence. A healthy relationship requires an emotional component and language as much as it does an intellectual understanding. and the most insightful healers are usually also highly empathetic and personally caring, with a feelings-filled interest in a positive outcome. Another pitfall is 6, the misreading of difficulties. Now, when it comes to blessings and opportunities, challenges and obstacles, one harmful way of thinking assumes that the more difficult something is, the more likely it is that we're doing what we're supposed to. While another completely different perspective holds that if something is inordinately hard, it, quote, wasn't meant to be. While a lifetime provides us with both difficulty and ease, neither is a clear indication that we're doing either wrong or right. Even while acting impeccably, we'll find ourselves equipped with advantages as well as disadvantages, blessed with both struggle and opportunity. When it comes to a healing mission, know that the problems you face are tests of your resolve and not signs of your dreams being out of reach. Seek not ease, but rather accomplishment and fulfillment through devoted service. 7th pitfall, the goal of no suffering. Healers are motivated to reduce suffering, and that desire is and should be at the very heart of a natural healing practice. But as agonizing and demanding as it can be, there's nothing evil about pain. It is some measure inevitable, and it usually has something to teach us as it hurts, prods, and persists. Don't think of pain as punishment, but as a call to be more consciously inhabiting our bodies, to be present, to attend, to make whole or to make better. Pain means to lead us to examine and to attend to a wound, a condition, or an as yet unmet need. And it's a way for an inflicted client or an inflicted friend to describe a problem's location or to communicate severity, to guide our assessments. Pain invites reinhabitation, revision, and revitalization as much as remedy and repair. It can make us consider the ways in which we hurt or debilitate ourselves, from environs to posture, and from what we eat to our lifestyle habits. And then there's the 8th, misconstruing illness and vilifying death. It's wrong to imagine that good health and long life is proof of one's spiritual level or personal powers. At its worst, such thinking can cause the ill to feel at blame for their maladies and make death seem like a defeat rather than a teacher and a reuniter. Additionally, while healing oneself physically is important, it's not as essential as learning from our every illness or debility. It is the practitioner's sometimes painful lessons and trauma-instigated transformations that affords her the power and the wisdom to deeply assist others. We equally need to avoid number 9, undervaluing instincts and overestimating or misconstruing intuition. Instinct gets labeled as an unconscious, knee-jerk self-preservation response of the most primitive parts of our brains. And intuition gets written off as the imaginary perceptions and affirmations of people seeking answers and remedies without any supportive facts. More accurately, instinct is an ancient knowing, derived from millions of years of applicable lessons in service to results, at the very foundation of our concerns, estimations, hopes, and choices. And intuition is essentially a deep knowing that comes from our connection to the whole of life, a sensing of the truth and motivation behind appearances, the recognition of the unseen, the inner, the all. It's a revealing not just of evidence and actions, but of patterns and possibilities. We're born with varying degrees of intuition, but everyone can work to develop this important healing sense. The danger comes from conflating our overriding hopes the expectations that come with repeated experiences, or our ability to sometimes cue into body language and confusing that with what is our genuine native intuition, thereby failing to notice or to comprehend important clues, surprising variations, unaccounted options, or unexpected consequences. 10th, the dangers of permeability. Plant healers by nature tend to be inordinately empathetic and thus more adept at experiencing what their patients are going through, emotionally as well as physically and spiritually. This is a crucial diagnostic aid, and it can increase our motivation by deepening our sense of connection and by drawing attention to what we share in common. The danger lies in becoming too permeable and absorbing and internalizing the distress of the patient and planet. While we open up to people's feelings and engage their conditions, we have to also be careful not to take their distress, depression, or fatigue home with us. 11. On the shoulders of plants and protocols. It's common to place the weight of healing responsibility on either the curative measures that we recommend or on the medicinal herbs that we employ, as if expecting a plant or therapy to undo a genetic propensity, a lifetime of bad habits, toxic environments, the onslaught of continuing stress that we put ourselves under, or a nutritional void we need to fill. It's a principle of natural healing that herbs and therapies are most helpful when treated as support systems, as influences and aids, as tonics, strengtheners, and regulators, rather than as one-time cures, life preservers, or panaceas. A fast-growing and utterly ominous pitfall is the increasing use of 12, artificial intelligence, and other dubious sources. Since the inception of the written word so long ago, even the most factual information has been framed and colored by biases. Depending on who was doing the writing, their experiences, attitudes, aims, usually by keeping in mind an author's or teacher's background, their perspective and agenda, it was possible to compare it to other people's accounts and thereby to measure their veracity. But now, with the ascendancy of artificial intelligence, there is no way to parse fact and truth from the nonstop blizzard of assertion and opinion mined by programs devoid of any capacity for critical thinking. Looking for quick, canned answers to questions on search engines are more likely to spit out the most often repeated assertions instead of the most verifiable. Herbal and other online healing schools are not only undependable sources of information, but they're bereft of the crucial personal experience and the hands-on testing of ideas, approaches, herbs, and formulas necessary. A majority of current books on medicinal plants are composed by a soulless bot on a plastic computer, without a human mind or a hand proofing its claims or choosing its illustrations. When dealing with one's own health problems, consult not machine-ridden books, undiscerning search engines, or automated diagnostic websites. Instead, search out the fringe cottages and side street apothecaries, the Hispanic barrios, dirt reel conferences, and well-respected in-person schools, the wild-eyed young visionaries whose fresh thoughts are overlooked by algorithms, or the backwoods granny wives whose rooted wisdom was earned by treating hundreds of thousands of diverse cases and tweaking their medicines and suggestions every step of the way. 13. Underestimating ancient tradition, regional customs, proliferate and weedy herbs. While publishing Plant Healer Quarterly magazine over the years, I've been amazed at the endless new discoveries, research findings, and unanticipated advancements at the leading edge of unconventional science and the frontiers of current and future healthcare. From the importance and the determining influence of our microbiomes to the complexities of the loving, neglected vagus nerve. And from plant communication to bioremediation, there isn't a month that goes by without more infusions of brain-stirring data, answers to long-standing quandaries which lead us to yet more wonderings and yet more inquiries. I've been literally blown away to find out about little recognized or acknowledged medicinal plant species I'd never heard of, as well as about the newly uncovered properties, actions, and applications of herbs long known for their signature benefits. Ignoring such as this would be self-limiting and mission-impoverishing, frankly, no matter how natural your practice or folky your approach. But an even more common trap is underestimating or undervaluing the traditional modalities and the understandings, the regional customs, and healing practices of the ancients and of the so-called primitives. Modern society is all too quick to write off ancient ways and unofficial methods with proven successes even, in exclusive favor of currently accepted beliefs and pharmaceutically based treatments. And similarly, many of even the most earthy herbalists fall into the pit of giving the most credence and the most attention to the currently hot, trending, exotic, and imported herbs, while insufficiently crediting and utilizing the many powerful, regional, proliferate, and weedy species found just outside in our yards, parks, and forests. And then there's the trap of thinking that one size fits all. When you search for info on a health condition online, and even when you look up many of the better books written by real practitioners, you will still often only see the most simplistic and common attributions for things such as echinacea is for the immune system, with little mention of any other effects or uses of the plant. We likewise will find an herb broadly recommended to everyone for some condition without taking into account a sufferer's type, their health history, additional or correlating problems, known sensitivities, and probable reactions. Most sources and supplements suggest stimulating species like turmeric and Oregon grapefruit for liver issues across the board, when some people, like myself, need liver calming and rebuilding herbs and are only made worse by conventionally touted and universally marketed liver herbs. If wanting to start a healing practice, clinic, or business, it's best to avoid number 15, an overly generic practice. In a majority of cultures and places throughout history, the healer had to be a generalist in order to serve the community's wide range of issues and needs, from suturing to treating infections, and often including acting as a midwife as well. In many cases, they were also expected to act as intermediaries within spirited nature, oracles of the future, or even advisors in the momentous present. For the longest time, plant healers gathered or grew their materia medica, devised their own formulas, and made the medicines required right there in their homes. While there are still opportunities for this sort of thing, these days people have so many options for modalities and practitioners that it helps to launch or develop a specialized healing practice yourself, focusing on what you find most personally compelling and effective, and branding yourself and your enterprise in a way that both distinguishes you and evokes the vibe and the knowings that you can offer. Number 16, regulation, subservience, and legitimacy. These things can also be really serious impediments. There are good reasons to regulate medicines and healing practices, of course, reducing the chances of harmful mistakes and misuse of drugs. But corporate influence laws tend to greenlight pharmaceuticals in spite of their frequent deleterious side effects, while restricting and delegitimizing herbs and natural therapies. The well-established system is set up to guarantee the profits of big business while making it increasingly difficult to operate a community clinic or even prepare formulas in one's own home. Subservience is yet another pitfall to watch out for. Sidestep, quietly find workarounds, and when appropriate, openly resist them, confront, and protest legislated restrictions. Being outlaw isn't the same as being criminal. It's simply doing what we know is right and what we know is helpful outside of the framework of enforced laws and imposed norms. We mustn't let our fear of legal ramifications ever stop us from practicing and advancing the ancient benign crafts that are so effective at lessening suffering and improving our world. 17th pitfall. The lie that we shouldn't make waves. We like to protect and nourish, our role being the maintenance of family and preservation of the nest, after all. It's usually more difficult for us to embrace change, and we have to be vigilant not to compromise our values, experience, and purpose out of worry over upsetting people or upending situations. The best path is not always the smoothest, and you know it. And the path of our truth sometimes requires making waves, dropping out of college, quitting a sensible job, or taking out a loan in order to launch a healing mission. That's sure to unsettle parents, friends, or spouses, but we can't let discomfort get in the way of our calling and plans. If a friend or client are in denial about their condition or the health-destroying behaviors that they're engaged in, it has to be pointed out, even if it's upsetting for them to hear it from us. If our healing work is impinged upon by unjust rules, vociferously challenging them could provide relief to future natural healers as well as to yourself. One of the worst pits of all has to be the 18th, hopelessness. Failing to always have full success with our treatments can be disheartening, I know, especially when layered on top of the stress of modern life or the fears of so many things getting worse. Social media reinforces the sense of doom by favoring posts with alarm and conflict, resulting in the trend initially called doom scrolling, and a growing segment of mostly youthful doomers resigned to what they feel certain will be an unhealthy and an unhappy future awaiting them. But the natural healing practice and mindset are essentially the opposite of all that. The balance, and to some extent, the remedy to negative predictions and disabling surrender. We can't give their lives to the work of curing and bettering if we think it's impossible and to no avail. The healing work is predicated on the likelihood of reducing suffering and contributing to wholeness and functionality, bodily and psychological well-being, and on our determined insistence to make that happen in spite of every individual, cultural, or political obstacle standing in our way. Life itself is amazingly improbable, and our bodily systems of immunity and repair are arguably nothing short of miraculous. We join with these natural processes to do the seemingly impossible, making things better. The only thing that's hopeless is ourselves when we sadly hope less. We exist not just to be the alternative or the antithesis, but to be the antidote. Then there's the pitfall of 19. Undervaluing or underestimating the power of love. For all your reasoned goals and heady knowledge, you must admit that what fuels your studies and devoted work isn't income or recognition so much as your unusual degree of empathy, your sensitivity to the most urgent and consequential needs of other sentient beings, and your urge to provide help, solution, and support. That's love, no matter what you might choose to call it. The inspiration, the calling, the force, the fuel, and your gifts to the world. The herbs, the stretches and massages, the carefully adjusted diets, the acupuncture or body work, all are tools and agents of your precious and powerful love. And for that, you must love yourself and your unflagging efforts. A lover of life and nature and wellness, indeed. And finally, neglecting to dwell in our delight. Number 20, our excitement, our pleasure, our joy, our satisfaction. As sober and consequential as our practices might be, our efforts are all the more effective in more and lasting ways when we're doing what we truly enjoy most. And when friends and clients can feel and share in our excitement to learn, feel, and heal. The best assessments and consultations include conveying the thrill of learning and discovering, of satisfaction of aiding and assisting, the sensory delights of the plants and the processes themselves. It's one of the harder to spot and escape of the many pitfalls on our healer's path. But changing it and stepping back into the light can make every other imaginable trap and challenge recede into its shadow. It will give you energy for the fullest offering of your gifts and put the glint back in your eye as you crawl on your knees to play with the newly discovered flower. Infuse and revive a client with your animated passion. Laugh out loud over missteps and contradictions, and demonstrate to the world not just determination, but deepest personal satisfaction.